I got to walk at my college graduation. I've never broken the law. She had to pay federal fines for breaking federal law on stock trades and stock reporting. And the New York Times reports was trading defense stocks while sitting on the House Armed Services Committee.
So when Newsmax claims that you made $7 million from stock trades, what are they talking about?
Newsmax is, first of all, a very questionable organization that is paying multiple fines. I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Well, did you make $7 million in stock trades at all? Or?
I haven't. I don't believe I did, but I'd have to go see what that was alluding to. Again, what kind of came from.
So I want to give you some updates on this New Jersey governor's race because, simply put, the Democrat implosion is continuing. And I want people to remember that New Jersey is not a battleground state. It is a blue state, and especially given that this is an off-year election where a Republican is the incumbent president, history tells us that the energy and turnout factors should be favoring the Democrats. That is to say, this should be a relatively easy and straightforward election for them to win, yet it appears that is not the case. Recently, we have been covering how the polls in that race are starting to narrow. Recent data is showing the race is basically tied or within the margin of error. It's looking very similar, by the way, to that 2021 Virginia governor's race where Glenn Youngkin ended up winning, where in the middle of October, the polls basically narrowed and got tied, and then by the late end of the month, it started to show the Republicans with a slight lead. I'm just saying, and furthermore, when you look at the current betting markets, sure, on Kalshi, they're still showing the Democrats at a 75% chance of winning the election, but I would like to point out that through most of September and August, Democrats were basically sitting at about a 90% chance. And ever since basically the Charlie Kirk assassination, number one, but most importantly, I would say on the local level, the recent governor's debates that they've had back and forth, notice how, oh, wait a minute, people are starting to say, oh, maybe the Democrats have a chance here at losing. So in today's video, I want to bring you some more updates as to why. First and foremost, the fact that the situation on the ground is getting so bad right now for the New Jersey Democrat candidate Mikie Sherill that multiple Democrat mayors are now coming out and endorsing the Republican, or the fact that Sherill is heavily being tied to scandal after scandal, or these very recent governor's debates that I alluded to, where she continues to implode, okay? I would basically compare her to an even dumber version of Kamala Harris, who embarrasses herself every single time she gets out to speak, and needless to say, this is going to be a really interesting election to watch in November. By the way, if you live in that state, obviously in New Jersey, make sure you go out and vote for Jack Ciattarelli, who is a genuinely strong candidate. And that said, we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our videos and ensure that we can keep bringing you this type of coverage. And that said, so we just got the news tonight, and the reason I'm partially doing this video, that a fourth Democrat New Jersey mayor is endorsing Trump-backed Jack Ciattarelli for governor. This time, it is the North Bergen mayor, Nicholas Sacco. It is coming 24 hours after Ciattarelli utterly defeated Mikie Sherill in the gubernatorial debate, which we'll tell you about. Now, again, I think a big reason this is happening is actually because of Zohran Mamdani, who is believed by progressives to be a huge gift in New York City. Because look, he's energizing the Democrats. People are super excited. This is the new wave. See, clearly the voters want our politicians to fight hard against Donald Trump. But the theory I've had, and the reason why I think you're seeing this race get so close, is that right across the state border, in a place with slightly more of a moderate electorate, I guess you would say, than New York, what's happening, as a matter of fact, is a lot of independent voters are scared of what's happening in New York City, and especially Republicans who, again, have this turnout problem. How do you get them to be motivated to vote when Donald Trump's already the president and it's not like a national election? That's exactly the way. Put this big, bad, scary progressive, hence why, by the way, internally Democrat leadership is panicking over the Zohran Mamdanis of the world. It's not just because the radicals want to oust Hakeem Jeffries from leadership. It's furthermore because they have the maturity to understand, sure, these people might increase Democrat voter turnout and energy because there's the wave of, progressive energy or whatever it is, but at the same time, they're energizing Republicans, and you're seeing that yet again. So how does that happen, by the way? in a blue state, by the way. Like, this is not a situation where maybe it's somewhere like Maine and you have these like independents who are, at the local level and all that. No. Deep blue New Jersey, or at least at one time, deep blue New Jersey. Democrat mayors, 4 of them, in a relatively small state, by the way, geographically, coming out and saying, vote for the Republican, the Democrat is crazy. Well, if you think the situation is getting any better for Mikie Sherill, you would be completely wrong. Fox News has recently reported how she was rocked by a massive cheating scandal tied to her graduation at the U.S. Naval Academy back in 1994. As you can see, it involved gubernatorial candidate Mikie Sherill and her husband, Jason Hedberg, according to the New York Post. This follows, obviously, the release of bombshell private military records. And essentially what happened here is that Sherill, a congresswoman representing New Jersey, has not been accused of cheating at the Naval Academy, but rather failing to report those who had cheated on an exam, right? She was running cover for the people who were doing all of this stuff. And Hedberg, the husband, was also caught up in the scandal. The outlet said that Hedberg was one of the nearly 50 midshipmen who had to sue the Naval Academy to block an honor board at the school from deciding whether or not they should be dismissed, kicked out of the school. Mikie Sherill, in her own right, because she was caught up with this and her husband was found to be, it seems there, right, cheating, and she was at the time not doing anything to report it, violating the honor codes of the military, obviously, she did not walk in her commencement ceremony because of this very fact. So, that tells you a lot. And this coming at the same time again. Cheryl's locked in a tight race against Jack Ciattarelli. But here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to say that, well, sure, you're serving on the House Armed Services Committee, and that's kind of screwed up. That's how you began your military service. But fine, it was 30 years ago. I'd further like to point out that perhaps the more damning allegation currently coming out is the allegation of insider trading. That is right. Not only has this been found and already proven that she's made insane profits, okay, she's rivaling Nancy Pelosi when it comes to the stock trading, but she's not even that good at hiding it because she has recently been forced to pay federal fines after she broke the law on stock trades and stock reporting, something that Jack Ciattarelli has completely destroyed her over in recent debates. Take a listen.
Mr. Ciattarelli, you get 15 seconds.
The difference between me and the congresswoman, I got to walk at my college graduation. I've never broken the law. She had to pay federal fines for breaking federal law on stock trades and stock reporting, and the New York Times reports was trading defense stocks while sitting on the House Armed Services Committee.
I think you get 15 seconds now.
This is the same old misinformation that he continues to promote because he knows that I don't trade in individual stocks. He knows I've gone above and beyond that. He also knows he promotes some garbage number, but he actually knows so much about my finances because they're all to the dollar. But here's the other thing. What he never learned, despite walking at his graduation, was accountability, integrity, care for the community. And I think that disqualifies him.
Tam,
thank you both.
She released 2 years of tax returns the years after she paid the federal fines. I've released
You
12
released
years
yours
going
a
back
minute
every
before the
single
last
year.
debate because you knew I was going to call you on it.
It doesn't matter because I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get to serve again when I win for governor in November of this year.
There's another big difference between her public service and my public service. It actually cost me money the time I put in and took away from my company. In the 7 years that she's been in Congress, she's tripled her net worth. There's another big difference between the two of us, okay? She broke the law. She had to pay fines for violating federal law on stock trades and stock reporting, and the New York Times reports that while you're sitting on the House Armed Services Committee, you were trading defense stocks.
It's misinformation, guys. That's all she has to say. That, again, not only is she making an insane amount of money off of stock trading while in Congress, yes, as was appropriately noted, trading defense stocks while sitting on the House Armed Services Committee. Yeah, nothing stinks there, right? So that's another component, perhaps, of why Mikie Sherill's campaign is not doing so hot lately. But perhaps you could already get the sense of maybe her real and core fundamental problem, which is that she's just not that smart. Okay, as I said, Kamala Harris minus 10 IQ points. Every time she speaks, she sounds like a complete idiot, like she has no clue whatsoever. And furthermore, when asked on specific policy questions, this is the other reason why I say Kamala Harris 2.0, she never gives an answer to basically anything. And if you want a prime example, I mean, just take a listen to this clip right here where the interviewer asks her a very easy question, by the way. If you're running as a political candidate, right, you should have substance to something you want to do. What's one policy you want to pass? And I kid you not, okay, this is real. The Democrat candidate for the New Jersey governor's position cannot answer that very question. Take a listen.
So, last question. If you could pass one piece of legislation,
what would it be?
Wow, I would love, that's a really good question because there's so many that are coming to mind right now. But right now, I would love at this point to pass legislation to, just send a federal block grant back to states, back to the state of New Jersey.
What? Now, look, guys, I know the 2024 election feels like a lifetime ago now. But does anyone get a little bit of deja vu from that, right? Like watching the 60 Minutes interview or something like that. There's nothing that comes to mind. I would like to make sure we get federal block grants on some very important key programs. What? Next thing you know, she's going to tell us that she grew up in a middle-class family, which, by the way, Mikie Sherill has kind of basically said the same thing, as we'll maybe show you later in the video. So yeah, again, this is what we're dealing with. And I think it's the real story here, frankly. If Democrats could just run a relatively normal human as a candidate in New Jersey on an off year, incumbent factor working in their favor, this is probably an easy winnable race, even though Jack Ciattarelli, as I said, strong candidate, almost won back in 2021. But at the same time, we should also be realistic about the electoral demographics of the state we're talking about here. But that's the problem with Democrats. They can't find a normal human. They pick the most incompetent, low IQ, dumb, empty vessel of a human that you could possibly put up there. And of course, this is the result, right? Can't even answer one policy she would do as the governor. But it gets worse. This is the debate that took place about 2 weeks ago. This is not the recent one. But Mikie Sherill was asked in this debate whether or not you would commit to raising taxes. And not only or to not raising taxes, I should say. Not only did she not commit to not raising taxes, she answered it in the dumbest, maybe worst way possible. So take a listen to that as well.
So that's why, as we look at a $5 billion hole that we're facing from the federal government, as we're working hard to make sure that we're paying into pensions, at least one of us, to make sure that people have the hard-earned dollars that they've earned over time, as we're working to make sure that we have the best public school system in the nation, I'm not going to commit to anything right now.
Okay, well, first of all, the answer is yes. Obviously, she's saying she's going to raise taxes. And by the way, she didn't exactly do a great job of the politician weave of trying to mask it in something else or not really just kind of dodging the question, whatever it is. No, she's not talented enough for that. She just said to everyone's face, and you can tell that she's going to be committing indeed to raising your taxes in the state of New Jersey. That said, I have to say it's a bold strategy. When you're in a close election and maybe you're underperforming, but you have the inherent advantage. You don't want to do anything to just jeopardize the slight lead you have. I thought conventional political wisdom typically says it's not a good idea to get out in front of the voters and tell them directly you're going to be raising their taxes. But hey, what do I know? I've never run for office. I'm just a random commentator on the internet. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like smart strategy to me, ladies and gentlemen. And the story goes on here as well, because this property tax question comes up, right? What is your plan on property taxes? Are you going to lower them? Jack Ciattarelli basically goes very deeply into his plan in terms of school funding formula, tax deductions from Big Beautiful Bill, all this stuff. And then Mikie Sherill, in response, much like everything else, again, as I said, Kamala Harris 2.0, ends by literally not giving a plan at all. Take a listen.
Per year. Not long ago, as we all know, it was 100% deductible. Now it's a fraction of that. Given that, would you lower New Jersey's property tax? It sounded like your opponent did not think you would.
We need a new school funding formula. Anyone who's from New Jersey would know that anywhere from 15 to 20% of your property tax bill is municipal taxes, 15 to 20% are county taxes, but anywhere from 60 to 70% could be the school tax. And the reason why the school tax is so high in New Jersey is because of the way we distribute state aid to our schools. We need a new school funding formula. But there are other things that we can do to relieve the property tax burden. For example, make all property taxes deductible on the New Jersey tax return. Make all retirement income tax-free. Cap it at 1% for first-time home buyers, 1% of the assessed value of the home. My opponent voted no on the big, beautiful bill. You're now allowed to deduct up to $40,000 of your property taxes on your federal tax return. That, too, lessens the tax burden. So there's a number of different things that we can do. Also in that bill, there was a child care tax credit. There's a credit for private tuition. And it doesn't tax tips, overtime, or Social Security. The big, beautiful bill put more close to $5,000 in the pocket of the average middle-class New Jerseyan. She voted no.
So my opponent likes to talk about how he's from New Jersey, but anybody who's actually fighting for New Jersey would not raise taxes at every single level of government in which he served, voting to raise taxes. He's voted against over $1 billion in property tax relief. He's against tax relief for seniors, and he's for Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, which would undermine the ability to deduct almost 30 billion taxes from New Jerseyans. So here's the thing. He says he's from New Jersey, but he's not fighting for New Jerseyans. In fact,
yeah, so again, you can see the contrast here. Jack Ciattarelli knows what he's talking about, has very coherent plans on everything. And Mikie Sherill, just listen to her, doesn't have a plan on property tax or basically anything else. You'll start to notice this recurring pattern. Her entire campaign is basically one big I don't know. When they ask her, hey, can you name one policy that you really care about? She can't even answer the question. What is she running on? She's not running on a single thing. Quite literally speaking, that is what is going on here, right? And the story goes on. Because even in the prior governor's debate, both of which, by the way, have been total disasters for Mikie Sherill, but the first one may actually be even worse than the more recent one here, right? Ask the question on New Jersey being a sanctuary state, and what would you do about the sanctuary state law? Now, considering Sherill is a Democrat and, oh, Donald Trump, ICE, all this stuff, she could, of course, just say that she'll keep it in place. But, of course, that would require her to take a firm policy stance on anything, which she, of course, refuses to do. So take a listen to her response to that question as well.
Woman, can you clarify, is that a yes or a no on would you continue the immigrant trust directive?
What I'm going to do is make sure we're following the law and the Constitution. So that'll include due process rights and the Constitution.
Jack Ciattarelli.
I don't think she answered your question. Executive order number 1 on day 1, we're getting rid of the immigrant trust directive here in New Jersey.
You know, it's hilarious because we've heard all year from people like Hakeem Jeffries and Tim Walz and others that Republicans won't get out here because they can't defend what they're doing. It's so unconscionable, and this is why Democrat messaging needs to get better, and let's run good communicators who can really explain why we're fighting back against Trump. And then when you listen to the so-called good communicators, it's just like a bunch of talking points about Medicaid and due process and all this garbage. And then when you actually put it up against the Republican talking point, whether it was that recent exchange yesterday between Mike Lawler of the Republican Party and Hakeem Jeffries, where like when they actually debate the government shutdown, the Democrats can't defend anything, or this right here, right? When they asked about sanctuary states and she gives out what has been basically the Democrat talking point. I've heard Hakeem Jeffries say that 1,000,000 times on MSDNC constantly, oh, due process, all this stuff. And then the Republican points out, wait, but she didn't answer the question. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Democrats, right? Still don't have answers to anything, still don't have actual policies that they're running on. Her entire campaign is her saying, I'm not going to commit to anything. Okay, so why are you running for governor? Like what even is your agenda? Nobody knows. She's probably, the agenda, by the way, just so we understand, is insider trading and saying bad things about Donald Trump. There you go. It's worth noting, too, on the few issues Mikie Sherill has ever actually taken a stand on in her life, it's to defend, of course, radical nonsense, as this post right here points out. She has absolutely no answers to any problems and would like to ignore her record that Americans have rejected. While she's in Congress recently, by the way, she, of course, voted no on the Laken-Riley Act, which allows DHS to detain illegal aliens who committed other crimes like theft and assault. Okay, voted no on that. But of course, we as they always tell us, right? We don't support the criminal illegals. We're just talking about the mom and pop shops that ICE is harassing. Oh, but you voted against the Laken Riley Act, okay? You also voted no on the Protection of Women in Girls Sports Act, a bill that bans biological men from women's sports. And this is something, by the way, that Ciattarelli also torched her about in the debate itself.
And if we're concerned about protecting kids, I don't think that biological boys should be playing in girls' sports. She opposes me on both of those issues.
Did you want time to respond? Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'm a mom of 4 kids. And as I mentioned to Joseph, our kids have gone through COVID. There are mental health issues related to that. We have learning loss because of it. Our kids are struggling. And that's why as parents, it's our job to make sure we're keeping our kids safe at every level. As a mom, I'm going to make sure we do that. Obviously, parents know their kids best, and they need to be able to determine if there's something they want to opt out of in health class.
Wait. Time.
Thank you.
Time.
She's such a terrible candidate. How is this real? How is she running for the governor? Okay. But all of that said, I think you basically get the idea, right? You wonder why Mikie Sherill is imploding in this race. There are many factors, but factor number one, ladies and gentlemen, is indeed Mikie Sherill. And the great irony is that her closing message last night literally goes the following: if you want the same old, vote for Jack. If you want lower costs, vote for me. Says the person, first of all, who is running on nothing. You don't even have a campaign platform. So what do you mean that, you're some type of rejection of the status quo? But secondly, of course, also ignoring the fact that Democrats have been governor the last 5 out of 6 times in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey's a blue state. You are the status quo. But no, she actually closed with this somehow. And she believes that's going to be a convincing message when obviously, voting for a Democrat in New Jersey is to vote for more of the same.
And so I will tell you, if you want the same old, if you want the failed policies of old, you can vote for Jack Ciattarelli. But if you really want to see your energy costs go down, if you want to see innovation, if you want to see new ideas against the status quo, then I ask for you to vote for me.
Well, first of all, in order to have new ideas against the status quo, you have to have something called ideas. And you obviously don't. But anyways, that said, guys, there you have it. So if you needed any incentive, New Jerseyans, to go vote, this person right here, okay, don't let her become your governor. Oh my gosh. She's so stupid. But anyways, all right, there you go. That said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.